here we go. I've been waiting years for this moment to interview this guy. Let's welcome to Totally German Radio. This dude, he's slowly becoming a legend. His name is Kyle Kruger, and he is Mr. Here I Go Again. What's going on, Kyle?
Hey, guys. How you doing?
Good, man. Dude, I just got to say, like, wow. Like, I've been following this for it's probably about 3 years now. You guys been doing this for over 5 years. The first question I got to ask off the bat, have you gotten a job yet?
Yeah, this movie is my job now.
Look at that. That's what I want to hear.
Kind of. It's the kind of job that doesn't pay, but it's still a job.
There you go. I mean, seriously, like, what you've done is, it's inspirational. It really is. I mean, you're doing what so many people have wanted to do or dreamt of doing. You had the balls to do it.
Yeah, I didn't really, and when I say me, I'm speaking for both my partner, Steve McClure, who's our director, this is his story as well, and you guys talked to him the last time we did,
like 2 years
did a
ago.
show with you. But, yeah, it's been 3 years.
Wow.
3 years this week or something crazy like that. But, yeah, we didn't really think about that how that might affect people and what they might, whether or not they'd be inspired to do this. I think for us, it was kind of a lark. It was kind of it really was our midlife crisis played out on screen. I mean, you get to that point in your life where you can kind of see the end of the tunnel and you look back and where you came from is disappearing in the distance, and it's cause for pause and to kind of take an inventory of where you are and what you've done, and moreover what you haven't done. And so that was really what kind of motivated us to get into this. I think that the fact that people have become kind of inspired by that is a byproduct of that. But
right.
I'm glad that it's touching people,
Now, when you guys first started, I guess, talking about this, it's one thing to talk about putting your old band together from when you were kids, say just to do a show or just for fun, just for the hell of it. But to go that next step and to document literally every friggin' step of the way of it and decide to make a movie of it, how did that whole idea come about?
That was really what the original idea was, to be honest with you. Steve and I have a history in TV and some film production, but we had already produced a documentary that took 10 years to make, so we've already cut that in half.
Oh, wow.
But, we were looking for a different project to do. We were at the tail end of that, and it was a really serious, almost morose type of film, and it was kind of depressing, I'll be honest with you, and very emotional, and we just were looking for something that was kind of the antithesis of that. And so we just started bouncing ideas off of each other, and Steve is probably sick of hearing this story, but the reality is that about 9 pints in, sitting on a bar stool, the aha moment happens,
Right.
And that's really what we set out, was to make a film, and putting the band back together and all was really more of a sociological experiment more than anything else. It kind of morphed into this bucket list. And not only that, it kind of became, oh, wait a minute, this is really what I want to do. But that's not really how it started. It ended up kind of that way, but this was just a film idea, to be honest with you. It turned into something completely different, though.
It turned into a whole different animal. It really did.
We couldn't have planned this out had we tried. Everything that we had kind of mapped out that we wanted to accomplish, and every road that we went down initially was just a dead end, to the point of where we always had to have a plan B and a plan C in place, just so we didn't waste any time going, now what?
Right.
But even from the time, it was funny because we're just putting together the DVD, and we included the segment that Steve did with you guys a couple of years ago, and I was listening back to it and what you guys were talking about, and what Steve described to you, what we were doing, has since changed so much. It's like, it's funny listening to that stuff because it did not go the way we wanted it to. Trust me.
Yeah, it's funny because, and even, and I kept saying to myself during as I was watching the screener you sent over, you see like the early stuff that you filmed, and you have not real short, but you have short hair, and you just see as the progress goes how long the hair is getting more and more, and I'm just like, that just is like telling you right there the time that has gone on with this filming.
Yeah, and that was the reason why we didn't really have to put in too many stamps in there to say 3 months later, 1 year later. You kind of you could see there was kind of a physical transformation that happened throughout the thing, and it didn't really require that. And people are making that same observation, and it accurately paints the picture of how long this took us to make happen.
Now, was there a point like early on when you guys like, all right, yeah, we're going to start doing this, and you're doing it, and you start getting things rolling, and then you finally like said to yourself like, oh shit, like this is real. This is shit just got real for us. We're really in deep with this thing.
Yeah, I think that moment happened about 3 years ago. We were just talking about if I gotten a job yet. I actually lost my job, and I had to make a decision right then and there. It was either go for it or I think pretty much stop where we were.
Right.
And because I didn't think that, because at the time, the first couple of years we worked on this, we were just doing it as weekend warriors. We both had full-time jobs, and my job was 55, 60 hours a week. And doing this on our days off, doing it at night, using our vacation time, whatever we could to get it done, and it was just taking forever. So once me losing that job was actually a blessing in disguise. And that's when we finally said, okay, we're going to go for it. And then, interestingly enough, Steve followed suit a couple of weeks later. He just said, okay, I'm with you. And that's very uncharacteristic of Steve, trust me when I tell you that. But that's when we made the commitment. We said there's no turning back now. We are, come hell or high water, we're in this no matter what happens.
Now, what did you do what was your job?
At the time, I was a restaurant manager. Not my chosen vocation, but kind of where I ended up when I needed work. As I mentioned, I had some experience in the TV and film arenas for a bit, and out of necessity, had to get a job managing a restaurant, and that's what I was doing at the time.
Now, at that point, though, I mean, you lose your job. I guess Steve quit his job?
Yeah, he finally, he wasn't, I'm not going to speak for him to whether or not he was unhappy, but he was ready to go, I guess. And yeah, he left on his own accord, which shocked me. It still shocks me that he did that, I'll be honest with you.
So at that point in time, I mean, that's such a huge friggin' leap for anybody to take. At that point in time, like, what does your, like, family and friends say to you? I mean, they must have just been kind of like flabbergasted. We had a lot of encouragement. I don't think there was anybody, if there were people telling us that we were crazy, they were in extreme minority, and it's hard to recall that. I had a conversation with my family. I live in Colorado, and my family's spread all over the place. But I had conversations with everybody, and I said, this is what I need to do, and it's going to come at the expense of Christmas and Thanksgiving and all of those types of things. And I just kind of wanted everybody to be on board with that, and I got everybody's support, Wow. But I've gone a long time without seeing my family. That's for sure. I don't advise that as one of the sacrifices anyone should make. It was a choice on my part, and if I have a regret, that's probably it. But I think more people were just like, go for it, just go for it. Right. Wow. Now, how about you guys went through and you guys interviewed a ton of, the rock stars of the 80s.
Yes.
Who were like some of your first one? Like when you present that idea to them, I mean, they all pretty much like thought you guys were nuts, and to do that, I mean, that had been very intimidating for you guys to do that.
Yeah, at first. I mean, when we decided to pull the trigger on this, it was 2010 in January. We didn't get our first interview until July. We got turned down by everybody, and we finally realized that we were going about it all wrong. We were trying to go through publicists and management companies and record labels, and when you're dealing with those in-between people, those people got to get paid.
Yeah.
So they want it. They're first and foremost, they're they're looking out for their client, but they're also, well, what's in it for me? Mm-hmm. So when we kind of changed our strategy and started reaching out to these guys personally, whether we were at one of their shows or we got a hold of their email address or whatnot, that's when we started seeing some results. And the first guy that we talked to was Steve Blaze from a band called Lillian Axe.
Okay.
And we had actually cornered him at a show about 3 years earlier in Denver, and we just said, hey, we're going to make this movie, and we'd like to use a Lillian Axe song. How about it? He's like, yeah, why don't you hit me up on MySpace? That tells you how long ago it was.
Right.
But true to his word, we called him, and we sent him a message and say, hey, would you like to be in the movie? He's like, absolutely. And that's when we got our first one, and after we got the first one, we kind of dropped his name to the next person, who was Brian Vollmer from Helix. Steve ended up going on a little mini tour, and then it just kept Winger, and then Jeff Pilson, and then Cher Ross from Vixen, and then it started to multiply.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of how it happened with us, too, here with this show. I mean, once you get that one, it just starts snowballing. Now, I mean, you guys just didn't stay in Colorado, though. I mean, you guys were flying all around the country.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I just mentioned Canada. We went to Texas, Florida, where we're originally from. We went to L.A. a couple of times, went to Vegas a couple of times. We went to Flint, Michigan, High Point, North Carolina. We went to the greater Chicago area. I mean, we went to a lot of different places and a couple of countries for sure, yeah.
And one of the people that really kind of took you guys under his wing has been Ron Keel.
Yeah, that would be an understatement. I mean, Ron became and completely just by happenstance became just such an important part of this process. He kind of adopted us in a way that he just kind of became our mentor, and that was one of those things that just kind of happened organically. It was just like he'd come up with an idea and say, hey, how about we do this? He would come to town and play in Denver, and we would go hang with him, and we just kind of forged this friendship, and it just kind of snowballed from there. We did one thing, then we did something else, then we did something else, and then the next thing you know, he's producing a record for us.
Right.
I'm still pinching myself.
and even too, I mean, you were taking vocal lessons from him. I mean, it's not like you guys were just like, oh yeah, we're gonna have to get the old band back together, blah 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 blah. I mean, you guys actually you were taking vocal lessons from Ron Keel. Steve started taking guitar lessons again to learn how to play all over again. I mean, it was a whole. It's not like you guys did this half-assed. You guys took this very serious.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think once we made the commitment and once we realized where we were and what we needed to do to kind of take this where we really wanted to, we had to buckle down, and that's all there is to it. Now, I don't want to give away too much story, but we went well beyond what we originally intended in trying to reform that original band. And once we got to that point and found out that we better have a plan B in place just in case, that's when we kind of said, okay, here's what we got to do to make this happen,
Right.
And that's, I would say for Steve in particular, that might have been the most challenging part of this process, was reacquiring that skill during the middle of his life,
Yeah.
I had some challenges myself. Mine were more physical, but it was not easy, and we had to make a hardcore commitment.
Now, how about what do you think personally for you was the biggest blow to you while making this, where you thought to yourself, all right, maybe we should just say fuck it or screw it and be done with this?
Well, I think it was when Steve and I realized that we were kind of on our own. At one point, we just had to kind of move forward, and I think we went several months without anything happening. I was becoming frustrated with the creative process as far as writing and arranging material and trying to be a decent singer, and it got to me. I kind of put too much pressure on myself, and it got to me. And I think you take that coupled with the fact that I wasn't working, I didn't have an income, you combined all those elements, it was like, I don't know if this is worth it or not. I mean,
right.
This is like borderline stupid, to be honest with you. And, to Steve's credit, he was able to talk me off the ledge. And I'm not a quitter by any means. I'm really kind of the we can do this guy. There's nothing that's going to stand in our way. But I really had a meltdown, and I was ready to cash it in, and we captured that in the film, as you'll recall.
Absolutely. I mean, I would have cashed it in. I most definitely would. I know for a fact I would have. Like, I don't know how I wouldn't be able to do it, man. Seriously. I mean, you guys, you really did. You bit the bullet and you went for it. And there's not many people, like I said, like, it's an inspiration, and so many people would want to do it. But to actually physically do what you guys have gone through, not many people would be able to withstand that.
Well, I think that the general opinion that I've gotten from people is that it's a great idea. I would love to do that. But then the reality sets in that while it may sound like a good idea, it's definitely not that easy. And I think that, if there's any subtext worth noting, it's the fact that we kind of pose that philosophical question. If you had the opportunity to go back and do it all over again, would you? But what would you be willing to sacrifice? Because there's no such thing as a free lunch, And when we posed that question to some of our former band members, at first, hey, yeah, it sounds like great. But when the reality kind of hit them over the head, it's like, I'm not sure about this, And I think that's a universal theme, though. If you want to do something, what are you willing to give up to make it so? Because it's just not going to happen easy, and it's not going to be free.
This is true. Now, I mean, something else, that's a big difference today than yesterday is the state of the music business. So, for you guys to do this, and as you're going along with this, and it's, 5 years deep into it, what are the aspirations now? Is it to continue forward and make music your career now?
That depends on which one of us you ask. If you ask Steve, he'll definitely give you a different answer. But my answer is that I have a desire to continue moving forward. You noted how many of the rock stars from that era we had in the film, and one of the primary purposes of us going to them was to get their advice and find out what the state of the business was right now. What exactly are we getting into, and how, if we take this step, how do we survive,
Right.
We defer to their expertise. So early on it became apparent that the chances of being successful at playing music, whether you're, if you're 25, are slim to none. So you can imagine how it is if you're in the middle of your life, what the chances are.
Right.
But there's more to it than there's more to it than that. It depends on how you define your success. And for me personally, I have to have that creative outlet. I have to. It's not something that I can just put away. I did do that, and I was miserable for like 15 years, just miserable.
Sure.
So once I reacquired that, and for me, I just kind of, sounds like really tree huggery to say this, but I found myself during this process, and I don't want to go back. So I've learned to live without certain things, certain luxuries, and I understand that that's the trade-off to do what I love doing. And if you love what you do, it's not a job, And
that's true.
The fact that I'm at this stage of my life and I'm going for it, in my mind, makes me successful. I'm successful because I took the chance and I'm making something out of it. Now, I don't have a pipe dream that we're going to have limousines and, sold out stadiums and, big record deals. I understand that's an era that's long gone. But
right.
Not having ever been part of that, I'm not missing anything, So I don't think my expectations are quite as high. I think what I do, where I do stand a chance, is that we're in an indie universe now. It's a do-it-yourself thing. Music is. Even film is getting to be that way.
Sure.
So having that kind of control to do what I want, having the tools at my disposal, being able to do my own distribution, and kind of being in control of that whole thing, I can make a lot less money doing what I love doing and still probably make better money than had I been hitting it back in the day.
Right. That's true.
One of the questions that we asked every single one of these rock stars in this movie was, what is the biggest misconception about being a rock star? And we've got two answers. The first answer was that I am a rock star. The second was that I have money. Virtually all of these guys, when they got their record deals back in the day, got nice bonuses or money, advances, I guess they called them. Went out, bought a sports car, bought a beach house or a condo or whatever, and probably failing to recognize the fact that at some point they're going to have to pay that money back.
Yep.
And more often than not, that was the story. If you look at all of the bands that are in the movie, who I think represent a very, very decent number of bands that were actually active back in the day, how many of these bands actually were able to sustain a career? I mean,
right.
You probably can count on two hands. Poison was one, Def Leppard was one, White Snake. I'll throw Metallica in there because for us it's more of an era thing, not a genre thing. And how many bands didn't? How many ended up not making any money and owing hundreds of thousands of dollars to the record label? From the stories that they told us, most of them, So I think kind of being a witness to what these guys are doing now and how they've built their business and how they are able to pursue their craft and make a living at it, they've been really good role models for us. So I haven't seen anything thus far from the music side that surprises me, and we're formulating a plan.
Now, you guys made a lot of connections and friends through making this movie. Do you think you've gained the respect of these people and these peers now over the years of doing this?
Oh, yeah, I definitely think so for the most part. I think the best way to describe this in that business, and we're talking about this era of music, I'm not a big fan of the word genre, but you've got the epicenter. You've got the people who kind of run the show. That's a key number of promoters and a key number of booking agents. And then you've got these key bands that are able to go out and play and make a really good living. And getting to that epicenter and trying to crack that nut is very hard. There are bands who've been trying to do it for years and still haven't been able to do it. Then you've got the next outer ring, which are those bands that are more or less kind of the weekend warrior guys who are kind of going through their own renaissance, who are maybe not playing full time but are still able to draw a crowd and make some money.
Right.
And then you've got another ring of guys who never quite got to that level but had an immense amount of talent but just weren't able to cross that. Then another outer ring of the guys who always wanted to do it but never got close to it. And for us, we were able to kind of, through this process, penetrate each ring. I don't think we've quite gotten to the center of that. In fact, we haven't. We're probably on that second outer ring. But as we've done this, we've become friendly with a lot of the bands, and they've been very respectful of what we're trying to do, because they understand, because they kind of, on a much different scale, they've been going through the same thing,
Sure.
This whole renaissance of this type of music kind of started bouncing back in, 2010, 2011, and it's just starting to peak. So, I think we've got, it's hard enough for them. You can imagine how hard it is for us, and I think they realize that and they respect it.
And you guys have, in a scary way, you've put yourself in with that genre of bands now.
Yeah, I think the jury's still out on what kind of band that we're actually going to turn out to be as far as classification. But we cut our teeth during that era. That's when we got started. We learned to play our instruments. These were the bands that we used to emulate. And so there's always going to be that DNA. That's always going to be part of our DNA. I think that for me personally, as a musician, as a writer, I actually didn't come into my own until a little bit later in the 90s. So what we're doing musically, if that's what we're talking about, definitely pays an homage to those roots. But we're presenting it, I think, a little bit differently. But I have no problem being, and I don't even call it lumped, I'll call it associated. I have no issues being associated with any of these bands because these are some talented fuckers, man. I'm telling you. If you thought these bands were good when they were in their early 20s, you should see them play now. For people who maybe haven't seen one of these bands in years, you take a band like Kix or Tesla, who just own the stage. I mean, it's ridiculous how good these guys are. So if we are associated with these bands, I'll take that as the highest compliment because these are some of the best artists and best technicians that have ever walked the earth, period.
Without a doubt. Now, you guys did play, which is in the film, your first gig. How was it that moment for you guys?
I think it was satisfying. It was a little. I would say it was a little bit nerve-wracking, and not. I've got the butterflies. I was more concerned with what was going on around us as far as the production and the film and wanting things to look right, and probably wasn't as concerned about the performance that I should have been. And if we're going to be transparent, I didn't have a great show. The band did marvelously. I was okay, passable, I guess. So my whole thing was I was thinking about it from being a producer, and that's kind of the double-edged sword of this whole thing. We are the filmmakers and we are the subjects. It's an auto documentary, if you want to call it that. And so having to be concerned with everything else that's going on, including what's right in front of you, is immensely challenging. So I wasn't particularly thrilled, to be honest with you. And if I'm speaking honestly, we got a really good gig. It was a great room, great stage, great lights, great PA. I just would have liked to have had more time to let the band gel, and we just didn't have that. We didn't have that opportunity. We had to go for this when the opportunity was presented, whether we were ready or not, and we went for it. In hindsight, it looked really good, and the way that it plays. I think that probably the best part of it, though, was the reaction that we got from the people who showed up, which for those who aren't in the know, we ended up opening for Jake E. Lee's Red Dragon Cartel.
Right.
And we played in front of a packed house. And that was definitely the biggest crowd that Steve had ever played for, and one of the largest that I'd ever played for, having continued music after the whole Tricks thing folded back in the 80s. But so that was the reaction that we got and the fact that people actually showed up was mind-boggling to me.
Wow.
So there was some satisfaction in there. I'm probably more critical of myself than anything else, and again, my performance was and I wasn't focused in the right area the way I should. But I learned a big lesson from that, and I won't carry that forward, that's for sure.
Now, how do you feel now? I mean, you're in the home stretch now with this whole thing. How do you personally feel yourself now, having gone through this a war at times? I mean, it's been a battle for you. To finally be almost bringing a close to the film part of it and moving on with the musical part of it.
You know, it was a lot of hard work. It took a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of blood, sweat, tears, and muscle, as Ron Keel would like to say. But for me personally, the hard work is the really challenging work is starting now. We've done this now. Exposing it to the rest of the world and getting people interested in what we're doing is more difficult than I ever imagined. And the difference between a band putting out a CD by themselves and trying to get people to listen to it and us doing this movie, there's absolutely no difference. We are in the same exact boat as a band. In fact, we're in two different boats because we've got the movie and the band trying to push themselves. So the hard work for us is really getting started. I mean, it's a 12-hour-a-day job, 6 days a week. I have to take a day off. I have to force myself to take a day off from this. But, you know, and even though the film itself is finished, we're not done. We're continuing to kind of document the what's next and the aftermath. Because you never know when, you know, someone's going to call and say, hey, how about a sequel? Or we need more content. So I think we're kind of just married to the idea that a camera always needs to be on, number one. As far as, kind of moving into the band, that's not going to be something that I'm going to be able to pursue as much as I would like to for a while. In fact, the show that you witnessed in the film is the last time we played.
Wow.
It became, it's about the movie first. We have to take care of our business. And so that was the last thing that we filmed, and then we went into post-production for 7 months, and then we spent the last 2 months in kind of a design mode and pre-release mode and kind of getting all the promotion that we can do ourselves. And then the band is actually more of a phase 2 thing. We're going to take the film out. Actually, I'm leaving Saturday for Dallas, and we're going to take the film out and share it with people and let them see that first. And I think through exposing the band by way of the movie, I think that'll create a little bit of a demand. And I think any window that we have for any type of opportunity is going to be limited, so we're going to have to act on it fast. But I haven't quite brought that, being in a band full-time into reality yet. And it'll never be full-time, honestly. There's very few people who get to pursue what they want to do on a creative level full-time, and I don't, I'm just being realistic. I'll play as often as I can, but it's not going to be a full-time gig. It'll go hand in hand with what I'm doing as far as, the producer of this film and managing that part of the business. And, they're always going to be aligned with each other. So, but I think we have a show coming up in June. We're playing with Lillian Axe, kind of a reunion gig. And we don't have anything on the books as of yet. We'll see. But I'm not actively pushing that yet because I'm just trying to get the film out into the world.
Now, could you see yourself doing, after all this, and you said you did another one before this that took 10 years. Can you see yourself doing another film after this?
There's definitely going to be some sort of project after this. This was, by design, I need to not be a restaurant manager anymore, and I need to have a career that I love. And when you get to this part of your life, you kind of, whenever possible, you kind of need to be your own boss. And so that's kind of where I'm at with this. So I had already had my next project kind of lined up, and it's in the queue right now. In the business, they like to call it in development. I'm using air quotes here. So there is something on the horizon. There's also an extension of this film that might turn into something else. I can't really elaborate on that because right now it's just conversations, but it looks like Here I Go Again is going to, it could be a brand that keeps going. I'm not sure yet. We haven't wrapped our heads around it, but we're starting to get some attention from some people a little bit higher up the food chain. So we'll see. But
nice.
Yeah, I plan on doing another. I've got a TV show that's in development. Steve has got some ideas of what he would like to pursue as far as documentary. I think at some point he's going to pursue the projects that he wants to, and I'm going to pursue the projects that I want to, and I think we'll end up consulting with each other on these, just so we can both kind of maximize our creative satisfaction.
Right.
But we'll do it under the same umbrella, though.
Nice. Very, very cool. Now, I saw you're actually going around the country with this. You said you were going to Dallas, and I saw you were going pretty much around the country with it as well.
Yeah, we've we're calling this. It is what it is. It's a U.S. film tour, and we're going to be executing this in legs. We've already done one screening. We did a test screening here in Denver in January, and it sold out, and the response was great, which meant we didn't have to go back and change too much in the movie after that. And then we are hitting the first leg of the tour, which will take us next week on March 8th to Dallas at Texas Theater. And then a couple of days later, which is the actual release date, March 10th, the release date of the film, we're going to be right on the precipice of South by Southwest in Austin.
Oh, cool.
And then these are kind of tests for us to kind of see how to best execute a tour. And so after we execute these dates, we'll go back and find out what worked, what doesn't work, as far as promoting and that type of thing. But we have additional dates already lined up. We're going to be in the Tampa area, which is our hometown. We're going to be there for 2 shows the beginning of April. Then we're in Atlanta and Nashville. We have stuff penciled in beyond that, but we don't want to kind of bite off more than we can chew, to use a cliche. We're testing the waters right now. We want to make sure that this is something that people really, really want to see, because quite honestly, we just don't have the money to blow on putting this into all of these theaters. And when we're touring this, that means me driving my Jeep, couch surfing my way across the country, great example. You have a band that kind of travels the country in a van with a trailer, but at least their gigs they're being booked for their gigs. We actually have to book our own venues. We have to pay for the theaters. Then more often than not, we have to sell our own tickets. We have to do our own promotion. So it's one of those things that it's going to be a slow burn. I imagine that we'll probably be out for about 18 months. We'll do a couple of weeks on, a couple of weeks off, to be able to execute properly. And, we'll take the film where we feel like we've got the best chance for some success. Nice. And then, if we kill it in a city, then phase 2, we'll double back, we'll do it again, but we'll bring the band the second time around.
Now, how about Philly, by chance, at all? Penciled? I
actually have Philly penciled in for the end of April, believe it or not. I have an anchor gig for that leg that I'm working on at the moment, and that has to be solidified before I can do anything else. But it's almost like routing a band. I mean, if you're going to go to point A and B is close by, then you hit as many places close by without cannibalizing. So, but I do have designs on bringing the film to D.C., Baltimore, Philly, and in that leg probably we'll finish up in Pittsburgh.
Nice.
But a couple of things need to happen first. But my eyes are on it. Trust me. My son lives there in Philadelphia, and he worked on the film, so I definitely want to be able to get it there. Yeah.
What part of Philly?
Boy, I wish I knew the exact area, but he's like kind of in the heart. He was a University of the Arts student, a filmmaking student.
Okay. Nice.
And he worked on the film, and so I would kind of like to bring it so, his buddies can see his handiwork.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. You got to get up here.
Working on it, and I'll definitely be hitting you guys up soon about that, because we want to make sure that we find the right venue, and that like I said, we need to kind of build up the demand for it. I don't think we're going to have any problem in Philly, though. I got a feeling that that's going to be something that a lot of people are going to welcome, which is we're looking forward to that.
Cool. Yeah, shoot me an email with what you're looking at, and I'll tell you if I know anything about them.
Perfect.
I'll tell you this one on air. You don't have to say yes or no or anything, but there's a little place in Center City, Philly. It's called the Roxy, and I saw there years ago Decline of Western Civilization 2.
That might be something worth looking at then. Whenever we can get into an independent theater like that, we love that. It just kind of plays into the theme of who we are as independent filmmakers, an independent band, and we like being able to contribute to that particular part of the economy, if I can say that.
Sure. Very, very cool. So, all right, so March 10th is the official release date. Where can everybody get their copies?
Well, we have an online e-commerce site, which is based out of Shopify, also accessible directly to our Facebook page. So rather than go through some long URLs, I would just say to look up Here I Go Again on Facebook, and you'll be able to kind of enter the gateway through there, or you can enter that gateway through our website, which is hereIGoAgain.com. And on the 10th, you'll be able to purchase the digital download, the HD download, and the streaming, and be able to watch it right there on the spot. We'll still be in a pre-sale mode for the DVD, which we're anticipating to ship around the 27th. We are just getting ready to give the okay to move forward with the replication. As a matter of fact, when I get off the phone, I'm popping in the discs that I just got from San Francisco to make sure that everything is as we want it before we pull the trigger on that. But that's the DVD's happening. It's a double disc, and we completely filled up both discs. So
nice.
There is so much content on there, it's ridiculous. And our author, Scott Christopherson out of San Francisco, was telling us he's done 5,000 DVD projects, and he has never had one that was this detailed. It drills down really deep, and we wanted to do that because we wanted people to kind of take the ride with us and kind of feel and experience what we went through. So, in fact, we've kind of set the DVD up almost like a scrapbook. I think that's the best way I can describe it.
Right.
And it really documents the beginning of this all the way to the very end, and I think people are really going to enjoy that. But they can go on right now online and pre-purchase the DVD, and if they do it now before the 9th of March, they'll get the digital HD and the streaming for free.
Nice.
So, but that's active right now. And then we will slowly but surely launch other platforms, like iTunes will come a little bit later. Amazon will come a little bit later. As far as the next tier after we kind of exhaust our efforts as far as the DVD and whatnot, then we'll start looking towards subscription services like Netflix. And we're out there trying to find some international distribution and, looking for a TV deal, just, normal run-of-the-mill kind of stuff. But,
sure.
So, as far as the music is concerned, right now we have a tentative date for a music release that will come out probably June 10th is what we're looking at right now.
Okay.
But that's very tentative. We actually haven't really announced that yet. I guess I'm saying it for the first time now. So, and then a little bit later down the road, we'll probably end up putting a deluxe version of a Blu-ray that's got even more content. We've got so much content, it's ridiculous.
Oh, I can imagine.
It's ridiculous. Steve had such a headache trying to choose what to use on the DVD as far as extended interviews with these artists, because we had so much to work with, and you can only fit so much on a DVD,
Right.
And so he made his choice, and now he's got to live with it. But we'll definitely, every time we put out more content, it's always going to have, we're going to build on top of it. It'll be something different, and it will be worth the effort and the investment. So that's kind of where we're at.
I'll tell you what, I told Steve this too, years ago when I talked to him. You guys, I love you guys. I love this whole idea. I am so friggin' happy for both of you. You guys, man, inspirational, truly inspirational, and I just love everything about it. And I'll tell you what, I've been listening to the EP all day today, and the song I asked you for, I had that like over and over and over, just cranking in my office. Love the tune.
I appreciate that, man. That's why. Right there is the reason why we do it, just for the appreciation. I mean, if people can get into what we're doing musically or get into the film and really take a shine to it personally, then that's worth it, you know? That's why we do it. It certainly isn't for the money.
Ain't that the truth?
Non-existent money, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's too funny. All right, well, I'm going to play that tune for everybody as I let you go, and yeah, hit me up. Let's get that Philly thing rolling and get you up here.
All right, man, we'll do.
And if need be, you got a couch here if you need one.
Hey, I will definitely take you up on that, man. Couch surfing is what I do.
Sounds good. All right, Kyle, I'll be talking to you soon, and yeah, everybody, here it is. The band's called Bullet in the Chamber. The song's called Gone Again. Turn it up because it's fucking awesome.